As we're gearing up and getting ready for a new year, you're gonna hear this a lot. New year, new you, transform your life in 20 days, whatever the case is. Hey, look it. I want you to ask yourself a question. Are you in a better position right now after 12 months than you were when you started this year? Are you healthier? Are you happier? Do you have better relationships with people? Do you have a better relationship with yourself? Are you thriving more now than you were 12 months ago? Now, if you are, fantastic. I want you to continue to do what you're doing because you're on that path to success. Now, I want to share with you something completely different, an inversion way of thinking going into this new year on how to set yourself up to have the worst year ever. That's right, I didn't stutter. The worst year ever. Because if we know what the worst year ever is going to look like, then all we got to do is avoid those pitfalls. It's an inversion thinking. It's looking at it from a different perspective. So I'm going to share the top 10 things on how to make sure that you have your worst year ever and avoid those pitfalls so that you can have your best year ever. I'm Brian Nunez, the CEO and founder of FNS Training Center, a holistic health company based out of Santa Clara, California, where we have an opportunity to coach people live on site our facility and people all over the world. And with nearly 2 decades of coaching experience of coaching tens of thousands of people all over the world, I want to share with you a different perspective on how to look at setting yourself up for not just the next year, but the next month, the next quarter, whatever next step, next season is in your life. I want to set you up for success by sharing a different perspective on how to set goals and how to look at things. And one of the big things that's been extremely helpful for me throughout the last couple of years is a way of inversion thinking. Now, inversion thinking is really all about looking at problems at a different perspective and saying, hey, what are all the problems that could happen? What are all the ways in which it could go wrong? And then focusing on making sure you avoid those pitfalls. So I'm gonna share 10 ways to guarantee that you would fail in the next 12 months or the next month, whatever the case is. If you do these 10 things, and you will fail. And this is always a great exercise for myself when I look at business, when I look at goals. No matter what goals I have set for myself, is I always make a list like this that says, hey, what are the ways that I know for sure I'd fail? And then making sure that I avoid those pitfalls at all costs. So I'm gonna share these with you. There may be some of these 10 things that you're currently doing right now that you're like, yep, that's me. I've got to change that. I'll share also additionally after each one, the ways in which we can improve it. But I first want to start off with saying, hey, if we're doing this, we're for sure gonna fail. So these are the 10 tips to make sure that you have your worst year ever and avoiding those pitfalls at all costs. Tip number 1 on how to make sure you have your worst year ever is to set resolutions over rituals. Now look, we hear this all the time. What's your New Year's resolution? What's your New Year's resolution? And I am not an advocate for New Year's resolutions. One of the biggest reasons why is according to studies, Forbes posted out a study that nearly 80% of people abandon their resolutions by February. So not even 1 month, 4 weeks. Most people can't even go 4 weeks because they set these grand resolutions of all the things they want to accomplish and they don't focus on rituals and habits. And this is the biggest thing. If you want to continue or be on that path of not accomplishing goals, set some grand resolutions. And there's a big difference between having goals, strategic goals, a whole process, which is a completely different topic that we won't cover today. But break the habit of resolutions and focus more on rituals, focus more on habits, focus more on all the qualities and characteristics that you can set yourself up for success versus just having some big, crazy resolutions. Focus on the little things, consistency, setting yourself up for success by doing the basic stuff. When you can build on those habits and stack those habits, that's when you're gonna set yourself up for success. Our tip number 2 on how to have your worst year yet. This is a big one. Take no responsibility, no accountability when things go wrong. So if something doesn't go your way, if the scale doesn't go your way, your job doesn't go your way, life doesn't go your way, take no responsibility. Take no accountability. It's actually just best to blame other people, blame circumstance, blame the economy, blame anybody but yourself. That right there will ensure that you're gonna have a very miserable year. Look, if you wanna have success, it starts with personal accountability and ownership. There's a very simple phrase that I have for myself that has been game changing, and I adopted this early on because it really shifted my perspective. I am my only problem, therefore I'm my only solution. And when we take that 100% ownership and responsibility and accountability for things that go wrong, sometimes even the things that are indirect in how you're doing stuff, it shifts that focus so much more, saying, how could I have been better? How could I have communicated? How can I have trained people more? How could I have set myself up for success? Look, when you take ownership and when you take 100% responsibility for things not going your way, therefore, you take 100% responsibility of being the solution. And that's ultimately what you want. You don't want to give away your power to anybody else. So take on that ownership, take on that accountability, and watch what happens with you starting creating more solutions in your life. Tip number 3 on how to have your worst year ever: do it alone. Do everything alone. Don't ask for help. Just figure it out by yourself. If you want to waste a lot of time, if you want to waste a lot of energy, if you want to waste a lot of money, just stay in your own lane and don't ask anybody for help and do it all by yourself. This is one of the biggest mistakes that most people make, is their ego gets in their way. And that's one of the reasons why people can't ask for help, is because they're too prideful. Their ego is too big, and they say, oh, I got it. I'll figure it out. At the cost of what? At the cost of time, at the cost of money, at the cost of effort and energy. When, especially now, in this day and age, we have literally access to anything we want through the internet, through people. We are inundated with so many resources that we can tap into that can help us out. So if you want to make those changes, stop trying to just do it alone. Stop trying to figure it out. Stop not investing in the right people that can support you, from coaches. Don't do any of that type of stuff. If you want to just make sure that you don't have success. Now, if you want to have success, you got to surround yourself with people who are going to support you, who are going to hold you to that high standard, who are going to be your blind spot. Every single person, I believe, should have a counselor in their life who makes sure that they're on track. And when they're off track, they realign them. So invest in coaches, invest in yourself, invest in your health, invest in experts who are so dialed in on the areas of your life that maybe you're not the strongest in, and create your superhero squad in your life that they can help and set you up on the things that you need the most help with. There are strengths that you bring to the table, but all of us have weaknesses. So one of the biggest things that we can do for ourselves is supplement our weaknesses with other people's strengths by tapping into those experts and not doing it alone. Tip number 4 to make sure you have your worst year ever: just wing it. Just wing it. Like, don't have a plan. Just kind of do things based on how you feel. So if you feel good, then do it. If you don't feel good, don't do it. Just do everything based off of pure emotions, right? Having those good weeks, just count on those. Count on the good weeks that you're gonna have, and on the bad weeks, just don't do anything. Look, the reality is you are going to have hard days. And look, just think about this last year. And I really want, within all these tips, you to assess yourself in this past year, was that if there was a scoreboard of days that you felt good and days that you didn't feel good and didn't want to do stuff, or maybe that was even go to work or work out, or things that you know you need to do, study to get you to the next level. How many of those days did you feel like you really wanted to do it versus the days that you didn't want to do it? Now, in my experience, there are more days in which I don't want to do something, I don't feel like doing it, than days that I do feel like doing it. There are way more days when I'm not motivated to do something than days where I am motivated to do something. And if we rely on pure motivation alone, we'll get nowhere in life. We'll get nowhere. And it's not about being motivated. We've heard this so many times before. It's about being disciplined. And discipline doesn't care about your feelings. Discipline doesn't care about your emotions. Discipline is, hey, this is what I need to get done because it's the right thing for myself and for my future. And so it has to happen regardless of how I'm feeling today. So if you've been in that position where it's like, oh man, I'm only taking on workouts, or I'm only doing things when I'm feeling good, and you're not seeing the right results that you want this year, then focus on, hey, no matter what, come hell or high water, I just got to get this done. I just got to get these workouts in. I just got to eat this food. I just got to get this work done. I just got to make those extra calls. I just got to spend time studying. And it becomes a compound effect of doing all of the little things really that you didn't want to do majority of the time that add up versus the times that you felt like doing it. So make your decisions not based off emotion. Make your decisions based off of discipline, and that discipline has to be deeply tied to why you're doing what you're doing, so that you can get one step closer to achieving those goals. Tip number 5 to live your worst year ever is obsess over calories and intense workouts, like the most extreme intensity that you can have with your meals and with your workouts. I mean, literally just beat the heck out of yourself. Actually, just obsess with bringing Tupperware everywhere you go, whether you go to a party or you're going to a restaurant. Just live in this isolated box where you're obsessing and counting every single calorie, what you're doing all the time, and really just put your body through some punishment with some intense workouts. If you wanna have your worst year, trust me, those will be two things that will happen. And this is a hard part for a lot of people, is that there's such a difference. There's this calibration, right, of going too extreme and then not enough. And in experience, you'll find throughout your journey, you've got to find that right level, the balance, if you will, based on whatever current season's happening in your life. So there may be times in which, hey, you're gonna go through some stretches where you really wanna level up for that month. And that may be fine, but it has to be calculated in your overall plan. The biggest thing probably the most important thing when it comes to coaching, the foundation of what I do and what we do at FNS is empower and educate and inspire people to create a healthy relationship with their nutrition and with their movement. This is what it comes down to. This is what a healthy relationship with fitness is really all about, is that relationship that we have with our food and that we have with our workouts. Our body should never be punished for the foods that we eat. Movement is a celebration of what the body can do. Nutrition is fuel for the body. It gives us energy. So we shouldn't be restricting ourselves, punishing ourselves with movement. We want to make sure we're honoring our body. We want to make sure that we have that healthy relationship with the foods we eat and how we move our body. And there will be days that you don't want to do it. There will be days in which they get a little bit tougher. Now, if we're just living by really an 80-20% rule, 80% of the time we're eating healthy, 20% of the time we're indulging, we're not bringing Tupperware to the parties, to the social events. That's really where the challenge is. It's not about saying, hey, I'm not going to eat it if it's not around. It's do we have the control to not eat things when they are around? Do we have the control to be in a situation and say no? And do we have the control within, if something goes wrong or doesn't matter, we celebrate, we have that pizza and beer or wine, that we don't feel shame or guilt in that process. So it is all about a healthy relationship with our food, healthy relationship with movements. So focus on that for this year, so that way you can enhance and make this a game of longevity and durability. Tip number 6 to have your worst year ever: stay in your comfort zone. Don't do anything outside the box. Don't stretch yourself. Don't challenge yourself. Just stay in your comfort zone. Just do the simple stuff. Just do the expectations. If you want to make sure you don't grow, stay in your comfort zone. Now look, we all know the only way to get to the next level is to stretch ourselves. Look, the only way that our muscles grow is when we actually push them past the limit. It breaks down the muscle fiber and then gives it a chance to recover, repair, and really that's where growth really happens, in the recovery stage. But like anything else, you grow through what you go through. And there is a very simple rule that I found in all aspects of life, that a prerequisite for success is going through some level of discomfort, some level of pain. But in the rules of life, right, the metamorphosis from a caterpillar to a butterfly, there has to be some painful experience in some of those things. Now, it doesn't have to happen all the time, but it has to happen enough that builds the right level of mental resiliency and grit. So that way, we're building that mental fortitude and that emotional and mental strength to keep us going through those tough times. And so the big thing that I would recommend is not to do something crazy every single day, but at least pick one hard thing to do a month. So once a month, do something tough, do something that challenges you. And the best way that I've experienced by having mental strength is through physical challenges. So physical challenges are a great way to build mental strength. And when we build that mental strength, it inspires us, it empowers us to make us feel like we can do anything, like we can accomplish anything. When we have those breakthroughs, which I know that you've had at least one of those breakthroughs in your life, that's what inspires us. And that's what makes us feel like, what's the next challenge? What's the next thing? So I encourage you at least once a month to do something outside your comfort zone. You can do something as simple as taking cold showers for a week, to doing some type of tough physical strenuous activity, signing up for a race, an obstacle race, a half marathon, a 5K, whatever it is, whatever your challenge is, whatever something for you to get you outside your comfort zone, do that. Because when you step outside that comfort zone, you step into a whole nother level of growth, which leads to success. Tip number 7 to have your worst life: track nothing. Track nothing, just wing it, just go with the flow. Don't track anything at all. Now, if you just don't track anything, then look, you're not on the hook for anything. If you just don't measure anything, then there's no opportunity to fail whatsoever. So you're all set. Like, there's no risk of being unhappy because you didn't fail at all. So if you want to make sure that you're just like having the worst year ever, don't track anything at all, and you won't feel bad about anything whatsoever. Now, the goal isn't to feel bad when you track something. So on the opposite end of that is, very simple thing I want you to think about this is, you can't manage what you don't measure. In every aspect of your growth, there has to be some level of measurement in order for you to manage it. You need to see what's working. You need to see what's not working. And not all things that you think are healthy are great are going to be the best situations for you when it comes to nutrition. There's no such thing as just a one size fits all, right? So not every single person can have the same exact meal plan because so many factors are different. Their hormones, their genetics, their age. There are so many variables that not every single person can have the same exact plan. And so what's really important is that we are tracking the things so that we can set ourselves up in order to know, say, what's working, what's not working, whether that's tracking our weights, whether that's tracking our meals, whether it's tracking our workouts and how consistent we are in our process. Like, literally, you can quantify anything. You can create a scoreboard for anything in your life. You can create, if you want to enhance the connection with your significant other, you can track your date nights. You can track the number of times that you called your parents. You can track the number of times that you wrote in your journal and gave yourself self-love. Like, you can literally track anything. Anything that matters to you, track it. Because if you can manage it, if you can measure it, right, then you're in control of the situation. So if you just want to be ignorant and naive and you don't want to know, I'll tell you that saying, ignorance is bliss, is a lie. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is going to bite you in the butt. You want to be in control. You want to have the data. You want to have that information. Now, the challenge is for most people is they become too emotional with data. Oh no, they take it personal. You gotta be logical. You just gotta see in a very objective way what's working, what's not working, and then make a move. Failing is your greatest asset. It's one of the biggest things one of the biggest assets you can have for success. You've got to fail. You've got to fail to know what doesn't work and then eliminate that off the table. So that is a fuel for your growth. So start tracking, start measuring the things that matter most, and create your scoreboard for success. Tip number 8 to have your worst year ever: quit every time it gets tough. Like, every time something gets hard, every time that you're faced with that obstacle, just give up. It's much easier to do that, right? And then make excuses along the way about why it didn't work out, didn't get an opportunity, this happened. Just give up. When things get tough, when there's an obstacle in front of you, just stop, turn around, and go back. Look, that's the last thing that we want to do, because that builds this quitter muscle within us that every time something gets tough, we're just going to quit. We're just going to stop. And you are going to have very, very tough obstacles ahead of you. Look, you and I both know this. I guarantee you this, and you know this for yourself. You are going to have challenges come up the next month, the next week, the next year. There is no smooth sailing. You are going to have some rough seas. You're going to get sick. There's going to be people around you that are going to get sick. Something's going to go wrong at work. You're going to have a very busy month where it's going to be tougher. It's going to be colder. It's going to be hot. Whatever the case is, you are going to have obstacles that are placed in front of you. We all are. And if we can adopt this mentality, right, saying, I can't lose if I don't quit. If I just don't quit, I can't lose. Now, you can go slower. That's okay, but just don't quit. Just don't stop. And look back this year. Are there times where you broke routine by absolutely quitting? Were there times where you're like, man, I just stopped my routine. I stopped my workout routine. I didn't do anything for weeks at a time or months at a time or whatever the case, days at a time. Depends on where you're at. Were there times like that? And if there were, how did you feel? Was it so much harder to get back on it? Did you start to have shame? Were you like, oh my God, I get this started? Or did you delay the process of getting started again because you were like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go through this again. This is too hard. So if you just don't quit, you'll never lose. So when you adopt that mentality, you know that you're going to face obstacles. You know that you're going to face challenges. Set some rules up for yourself that when those happen, you are going to do this. So that way, when this obstacle happens, I'm going to do this. Have those plans in place. So that way, when challenges arise, when obstacles arise, you know how to fight through like the warrior that you are. Tip number 9 on how to have your worst year ever. I talked about this previously in one of the slides, but I made it its own tip. was to feel guilty every time that you fail and feel shameful every time that you mess up. This is one of the biggest anchors in people's growth is guilt and shame. Look, you're gonna mess up. That's a known fact. And the greatest leaders that I know, they mess up the most because it's a game of reps. The more reps that you can put in, the more times that you can fail, the more times that you can know what doesn't work. Now it gives you that much more of an opportunity to figure out what works in your life. But when shame and guilt come into play, oh my gosh, I can't believe I messed up. I was working so hard. How could I have gained 10 pounds back or 20 pounds back? And I just lost track. I let myself go. Look, maybe these are phrases and sayings that you've said to yourself over the last 12 months. Maybe these are phrases and sayings you've said to yourself over the last 2 years, 5 years, your whole life. You gotta break that pattern. You gotta break that vocabulary of limiting beliefs, of self-sabotage, because that's exactly what it is. You cannot get to the next level. You cannot grow. You cannot be great with guilt. It is like the Achilles heel for greatness, feeling guilty, feeling shame. And there's been different aspects of my life where I felt this and I've had to really break through those things. And so when you mess up, which is inevitable because every game changer who's putting themselves out there is going to mess up, don't feel guilty. Don't feel shame. Brush it off and say, hey, I tried my best. I operated with the best intentions. And now I know what I know what doesn't work. And now I can put myself in a position to thrive. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. You cannot be great with guilt. So take that off your shoulders and go make some moves. Last and final one, tip number 10 on how to make sure that you have your worst year ever. Spend time with people who don't support you, who bring you down, who make cracks at you when you're trying to grow and get to the next level. Spend time with those people. Spend time with naysayers. Spend time with pessimistic people. Spend time with negative people. Make sure that you're devoting a lot of your time with people who gossip and chatter and don't really support you and tell you all the ways in which it can't be done versus all the ways that can be done. I'm a huge believer in you are the company you keep. The people you surround yourself with are ultimately the people you become. And that old saying is so true, right? You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And we have to take a hard look at ourselves and audit who are the people we're spending the most time with. And sometimes it's our family members. Sometimes it's people that are really close with us. Sometimes it's our coworkers. And we have to really audit ourselves to make sure, do these people bring out the best in me? Are these people supporting me? Do these people inspire me and make me feel empowered? And if that answer is no, then we're spending so much of our time with people who aren't elevating us. And if you really want to step up and level up, then you really have to spend time with people who make you feel uncomfortable in the best possible way. There's a difference, right? Between being uncomfortable because people belittle you and they don't support you, and being uncomfortable because people like challenge you and hold you to a higher standard. And I'm a huge believer of the people who call you out the most, like they know your potential, they know the greatness in you. Those are the people that respect you the most. Those are the people that have your back, the people that coddle you and enable a mediocre mindset and mentality. Those are the people who don't have your back. Those are the people who just, I think actually are rooting really for you to lose because they don't want you to get to that next level and make themselves feel insecure. And you're in the right room when you can say something to somebody else about a win that you had and you see how they celebrate you. That's the biggest way you can see if someone's truly a supporter or not. Tell them good news. Don't tell them bad news. Tell them good news and look for that look in their eye to see, are they genuinely happy for you, or do they see you as a threat? Does your success bring insecurity to them? And you want to surround yourself with people who want nothing but the best for you, who are going to level you up. And majority of the time, those people are going to call you out on the areas in which you can level up. So stop spending time with people who bring you down and start spending time with more. So those are the 10 tips on how to make sure you have your worst life. And team, it is about looking at it from a different perspective, inversion thinking. Start with the problems. Start with all the ways in which it can go wrong. And look, when I shared that list, those 10 things, there may be some of those things on there that you're doing right now. Maybe you're not doing 7 of them, but 3 of them, they're getting you. Now those 3, that can have a big hindrance on you growing and getting to that next level in your life. But it is all about keeping it simple. And simplicity is just doing what matters most to you. Just doing the basics. Success is really just doing the boring work day after day after day after day. And you know what you need to be doing. You know the stuff that you got to do to get to the next level. It's, do we have the conditioning? Do we have the patience to do that every single day? You're not going to get fit overnight. You're not going to change your relationship overnight. You're not going to get rich overnight. What's required is the compound effect of doing the right things day in and day out. And it's one of my favorite quotes is, if you always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you've always gotten. So if you were in a thriving position this year and you rocked it, then take that same mentality into the next year, into the next month. If you're in a position right now where you're ending and you're like saying, you know what, this isn't how I wanted to end it, this isn't where I expected to be, then do something different. You've got to change something up. Sometimes just by looking at it from a different perspective, like an inversion thinking in terms of solutions, sometimes that's the best trick, because you're like, man, I'm making all these mistakes. Now I got to stop making all those mistakes. Setting yourself up for success is really about having that mentality that your best is yet to come. So if you found this useful, it would mean the world to me if you shared this with your family and friends. Look, our mission, my mission getting into this space nearly 2 decades ago was really about creating generational health for people's family and friends. And that starts with each person. It starts with each leader in their community, because if you can change yourself, then you can change the dynamics of your family, you can change your community, you can change your friends, you can be the change agent. And so I'm so inspired every single day, I'm so passionate every single day to create that generational health for communities all over the world. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate your engagement, listening to this. Hopefully you took a note or two, share it with your friends, your family, and let's build stronger communities together.